Welcome back. You're watching Friday Briefing. Thank you for staying with us. We're still running big with the story of the impeachment of Nairobi Governor Mombasa Sonko. Let's now bring in Steve Ogolla to respond to some of the questions. A lot of reactions we've gotten since yesterday when the Senate voted to oust the governor from office. Steve Ogolla, thank you for joining us on the program. A story that reigned there by our reporter Duncan Haimba. And a big question here was the judge not making it on time. Was it by default? Was it by design? How are you looking at this?
Well, we can't say with certainty what triggered the failure of the judicial officer to arrive in time, but it could as well be a welcome consequence of the failure to appoint the 41 judges by the president, which now means mobilizing a judge at short notice becomes problematic. And also, just to correct the county assembly, judges don't sit at Milimani law courts waiting to run errands on short notice. They're also operating under COVID-19 rules, which means many of them who are above 65 are actually working from home. So this could as well be an implication by the failure by the political wing of government to mobilize the president to appoint the 41 judges. They can't approbate and reprobate support or collaboration, cooperation with the judiciary. When we need the judges to be appointed, they don't want to appoint those judges. When they need judges to swear in the governor at short notice, they cry foul. I think we have to look at it from that perspective too.
A big question that a lot of Kenyans have asked today, and I'd really want you, for the sake of our audience, to break it down for us. Why does this assumption to office or the swearing in have to be between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m.? What's the rationale of that?
Well, the rationale is just to provide some certainty, predictability, consistency. And again, looking at where we've come from, history speaks for itself, and we have had a history of the president being sworn in the dark, after hours. So I think the rationale could as well be 10 a.m. is a good time for a judge to appear, and 2 p.m. also basically a good time, just those 3 hours to work within that time frame. So it could have something to do with our history.
Hypothetically, yes, thank you. Hypothetically speaking, sorry to cut you short, if Benson Mutura, for one reason or another, is not available on Monday to be sworn in, what happens?
Well, I think he'll be available to be sworn in, but if he's not available to be sworn in, assuming he doesn't want to be sworn in, then the deputy speaker will be sworn in, and then I will then proceed the election. But we don't anticipate a situation where the speaker fails to turn up.
What options are there now for Governor Mombasa Sonko? We've seen the spokesperson say that they're still, looking at the situation before they can decide which way forward. Paint for us a picture on some of the options the governor has. In
terms of the legal process, he may appeal to the High Court challenging the manner of his impeachment. But impeachment, if you're going to challenge the impeachment of a governor, your case lies in the procedural safeguards as opposed to substantive issues, because impeachment is largely a political process. The High Court does not have the mandate to countervail the decision of the Senate, because that is an exclusively political decision. And in terms of the doctrine of deference, the judiciary would defer to the political wing of government and not inquire into the merit of that. The court is not allowed to question the merit of the impeachment, but the court can question the process. I think Governor Sonko had indicated some time back that MCAs who support him, their signatures, their credentials, passwords were breached, and people voted for them. If there is evidence that can support that claim, then his impeachment, the decision to impeachment may then be challenged on that ground. But other than that, because impeachment is largely political, we do not expect the High Court to reverse the outcome of that impeachment based on the High Court's view whether the threshold for impeachment was met or not. On the procedure, maybe yes.
Yeah. So what are you saying?
So in short,
yes,
Governor Sonko's real chances of reversing the impeachment in court is negligible. He doesn't have real chances of having the court reverse the impeachment. And if those chances exist, they exist largely because of procedural gaps or failure to follow the law, the procedure on impeachment, not for the reasons for impeachment.
60 days from now, if at all Nairobi will head into a by-election, can Mike Sonko offer himself up for the position? Can he vie?
The short answer is no, and I've seen this in social media. Can Governor Sonko return to the ballot? The short answer is no, because if you look at Article 182 of the Constitution, the vacancy has arisen as a consequence of his removal. Removal under Article 181 of the Constitution is a consequence of gross abuse of office, gross misconduct, and violation of the Constitution. Now, if you look at the requirement, one of the requirements for qualification to run as governor under Article 193, because the requirement for governor is the same as the requirement for MCA, part of that disqualification to run as an MCA means if you have been found to have violated the law or to have breached abused public office or a state office, then you are disqualified from running. The question then is, has Governor Sonko been found to have been in breach of the Constitution and to have abused state office? The answer is yes. That finding has been made twice by the County Assembly and confirmed by the Senate, and as a consequence, that finding is final. The court cannot interrogate the finding, the merits, the finding. The court can only interrogate the procedure leading the finding. So the short answer is Governor Sonko is not permitted under the law to bounce back even as an independent candidate.
What if then he's not in any way criminally culpable? What happens? Does he still stand a chance to get to the ballot and vie?
Because if you look at the Constitution in totality, if he cannot run as governor, he cannot run as MP, he cannot run as senator, he cannot run as president, because his removal was a consequence of a violation of public trust bestowed upon him by the Constitution. The provision in the Constitution relating to the criminal proceedings, that is an additional requirement that if you have not been found to have abused state office, then you needed to have been convicted. Governor Sonko, to be sure, is actually facing corruption-related charges. If you look at some of the grounds for impeachment, if you are suspected to have violated the law or the Constitution, then that itself constitutes a ground for impeachment. How do you suspect that a governor has violated the Constitution? The fact that he's already facing corruption-related charges itself is prima facie evidence that he may be suspected to have violated the law. So I think all doors are shut. Governor Sonko may not find a wiggle room to bounce back in any elective position. But if he attempts, then a question will emerge and the High Court may be called upon to make a finding, a binding finding that can then guide the IBC, because IBC will have to interpret the Constitution whether they can actually receive Sonko's application or not. My view is he's not permitted because his removal is as a consequence of gross abuse of office, violation of the law, which is a ground for disqualification.
One would ask then, on what grounds did the courts reverse the impeachment of Embu Governor Martin Wambora? Are there any comparisons we can draw from that case and this, and whether any precedence was set from that particular case? Procedure. Yes.
Procedure is the handmaiden of justice. Governor Wambora, if you look at the two decisions, the County Assembly and the Senate did not follow the procedure for impeachment. The High Court did not make substantive finding on the merit because we don't have the law on impeachment yet. What the Constitution provides under Article 181 and 182, the grounds for removal are just gross misconduct. We don't have a substantive legislation on impeachment that can break down the critical ingredients on what it means to be gross, to be culpable of gross misconduct. So the High Court would never enter the terrain of countervailing a political action, because under the political question doctrine, what the Constitution requires the High Court to do, questions that must be resolved by the political wing of government must be left or deferred to the political wing of government. But the court can countervail, and the High Court said in Governor Wambora's case that looking at the procedure, they were not satisfied that the procedure was followed. And the procedure means if the County Government Act, Section 11 and Section 30, require that the governor be furnished with reasons that could lead to a resolution of his removal, then those reasons must be given, and he must be given an opportunity to respond. If the court interrogates the procedure, the pathway to impeachment, and finds that the procedure outlined in the law was not adhered to, then on that reason alone, the county government may, the High Court may reverse that impeachment.
I must ask you this, and hopefully please respond in under a minute. Looking at the Nairobi Metropolitan Service and under General Badi, does a change of guard in any way affect the operations as currently are in the county government?
The short answer is no. It shouldn't affect the operations of NMS, but it could affect depending on how politics plays, because you see, you need the collaboration and cooperation of the incoming governor. But I think looking at the impeachment proceeding, it's almost assured that the incoming governor will collaborate fully with NMS. I think the greater question of constitutional importance is whether NMS has the capacity to take over the other functions of the county government without I think politically they are moving towards that direction, but that would be unconstitutional and illegal.
Thank you very much. A lot of questions you've responded to. We'll keep seeking these answers for you, even as we take a look at the happenings at the County Assembly here in Nairobi. Steve Ogolla is a lawyer. Thank you, Steve, for joining us here on Friday Briefing. On to other news, a total of 704 graduates were today conferred with various degrees and awarded diplomas and certificates at the